In this video, I'm going to show my experience with MDC React, where I started an application, and this is an application I started with a sticky top application bar with a navigation drawer on the left hand side with two icon menu items, and then a menu surface on the right hand side with a couple of buttons and a scrolling. So this is my kickstart or started application, and I want to show how I've made it using React and React Hook TypeScript. Before giving into the details of the source code, let's review what I have done. I've created a project in my GitHub system, MDC React 101, for a series of MDC React sample and demos for experimenting with TypeScript. What is this MDC React? MDC React is a material component implementation, material design components. This is MDC stands for. And this is the React implementation from Google. So these are the catalogs, quite comprehensive. This is the standard catalog of what are the features a material design component library should support. This is the GitHub package where the material components web React, that's the official name. The guy Moog16 is mostly behind this effort and development. This framework doesn't cover all of the catalog items. For example, if you check, maybe about 70% are covered. Image list is missing, and we don't have snack bars either. So if you check out, we don't have image lists, we don't have snack bars. But anyway, a number of components are available. And what is interesting, this project is using TypeScript as a primary programming language. If you look at the source code in the packages, you can see that these packages are programmed in TypeScript. I just randomly open the fab. Yes, this is TypeScript. I didn't spend too much time how much extent TypeScript is used, but anyway, yes, HTML button elements, a generic, definitely it's TypeScript. The first component I've implemented was the top app bar. This is the main documentation for this component. Everywhere there's a reference to the regular MDC web implementation, because this MDC React is simply a adapter on top of the MDC web styles. So therefore exactly the same technology can be used with SCSS, and these can be used together intermixed with MDC web as well as with MDC React. So this was the top up bar. I'm coming back my application. This is the top up bar component. I made it fixed. That's why it never scrolls off the screen. The next component is drawer. This left hand side menu list is called drawer. This is what I've included, and this is the main source of information how to add drawer. When it is talking about import, keep in mind when you are importing into an SCSS file, you should add an @ character before the import. That is @import material React drawer index. Icons are used heavily in my sample, and then these is the website where you can find icons by name, for example an email, and then you will have the option. This is the word, actually this is the identifier, email, the word to include an email icon into your application. I use also list. This is again the main package for lists. List items, variants, 2-line list, and also a list item with graphics. This is where the material icon the icon name is simply the folder. Here you can simply use the name of the icon, email, just replace it and you will have an email icon. Here you don't have to import the icons, unlike in other packages. The only thing you have to import is a material icon generic component. I also used menu surface. That was a tricky one. So there is no simple menu in MDC Web, neither in MDC React. Therefore, so this is a menu surface, and then it's quite tricky. The reason it is tricky that you need a MDC menu surface anchor div or whatever. So this is better to use this similar section where you can set with a ref tag the anchor element to position the menu surface correctly. So when I click here, so this position comes because I set the anchor element around this button. So that's why it is otherwise it just positions on the top left corner. So that was the menu surface, and then we have also the MDC Snack Bar. MDC Snack Bar was the point when I decided, oh no way, I'm going to go that direction, because of course it looks quite straightforward to use this MDC Web. There is no MDC React wrapper for the snack bar, and you have a quite nice big documentation how to use them. Still, I found this too cumbersome and too complex for such a simple thing. So I really suggest this framework for not the faint-hearted. There are a number of other ready to use packages for material design, at least 3 which I love, but this MDC Web is quite complex and requires a steep learning curve, in my opinion. So I haven't implemented snack bars. The reason I mentioned that when you reach the point when you start using MDC Snack Bar, that's the point when you start thinking that hey, maybe it's easier just to simply use a Material UI, which is full-fledged, or React Trap, or a number of other ready-made packages where you require far less effort to implement simple things like snack bars. So now back to the source code, what I have written. So the package was, as usual, initialized with MPC create React app with the TypeScript. Remember, this is the dot. So after I created the project, I initialized it, npx create React app dot TypeScript. Then I installed React Next and React. At the moment, these are not 16, but as far as I remember, this is today 16.8 alpha, I think 0. Let's check in the package. React, yes, this is today's version which supports React hooks. So that's the reason after create React app, I installed and upgraded the project to a version which supports React hooks. Prop types is completely optional. Sometimes it's fancy to have. And then npm install node SASS. That's, in my opinion, a must when you start working with MDC Web or MDC React. It's completely meaningless to start a project without node SASS. The good news, that it's very easy to work with node SASS. One of the that makes it easy is that if you define an env file after this initialization, just add the sass underscore path equals to ./node modules, and the internal sass packages will be nicely found during the compilation phase, so you won't have any errors. Right, so then these are then the packages I've installed. So when you work with React app, you are expected to import and install all these packages one by one. For example, npm install @material/react top app bar, React material icon, and then I also installed npm install material React drawer, and that React list and React menu surface. These are the 1, 2, 3, 5 packages that I worked in this initial project, the quick starter project. And this is what you can find. What is good in React and Material React, that it fully supports TypeScript, so you have very nice TypeScript built-in support for all of these packages. Let's review what I have modified. So firstly, in the public index, I included this normalize min.css, and then the two most important, the roboto fonts and the material icons for icons. Keep in mind that this should be included if you want to use these material icons. That was all from this part. I renamed the app CSS into app SCSS, And here is something that you should learn. There is other possibility, but this is the most common way that this SCSS file is used. So all of these material SCSS files are imported with this @character directly into the app's SCSS file. So when I come here and then my module tsx file simply imports the app SCSS, therefore I don't have to import any of these style sheet files, because the whole implementation of material design framework MDC web is actually a bunch of SCSS files and some JavaScript files. So that's normally you should do. So when you include another component, say a snack bar or whatever, the SCSS file should be, this is not the only possibility, that my recommendation or a typical, and I don't recommend anything, this is just the way I did it. Just import the SCSS files always here, and then you will be very happy. These files will be available for you. And then let's check out the main module, which is quite straightforward, just a regular imports. We don't need components at all, because I'm going to use React hooks. I will show you which hooks I use here. I import the top up bar fix adjust. I don't go into the details of explaining all of the information that are available on the React MDC React documentation pages, but just for reference, here is a working, full, concise startup project to start with MDC React. Here is I import material icons, the drawer, menu surface for menus, and the lists for the menus, both in the menu surface or in the drawer. I don't use the logo. I wanted to, but it didn't work properly in the top up bar on the left hand side, so I just simply use this hamburger menu. Here's an app CSS, and then comes our main component. I fully exploit this React hooks. This is a typical export default function app component, and I use here a use state, a boolean state hook. One is for the drawer if the drawer is open. This is a stray when it is open. So this drawer open state is set or handled, managed with the React use state, a boolean. The type is a boolean. This is a TypeScript where we can define this is a boolean type, and the false means that the initial value is false. That is, the drawer is closed. Of course, when we jump here, the drawer is closed. So this is the drawer. So when I click this menu icon button here, I just simply set the opening, and then it opens the drawer. So that's when we have a look here. Yes, this is the set drawer open true. In the top up bar, navigation icon, material icon, and the menu, that's the name. This is the hamburger, the menu. On click, and then set drawer open. The other is menu open. Again, exactly the same. When the user clicks the set menu open, when the vertical, yes, the more underscore vert, that's the name of the icon, is a click, then we open the menu. That's a tricky one. For the menu, it's requires some effort to make it working. First of all, I use the useRef. This useRef is different from very similar. The difference is that useRef doesn't enforce the system to re-render. It just simply saves a variable, something like a class instance variable or an object instance variable, and this is exactly the same. So this is something like more a memory area from the shared memory. So every time when this function is called, when this point is reached, this function goes out and tries to find out if the value for the menu anchor element is available. If it's not, initial value is null, but then when we set the value, check out when I set the value, here is the value when I set it. That's a tricky one. So you need definitely for the positioning of the menu, a div class MDC menu surface -- anchor, and in React we use this ref prop, where we have the element, and then the element we set the menu anchor L dot current, because menu anchor L doesn't contain directly the value, but it has a property, a field which is called current, and that current, it has the type which we define here. So for here, for the sake of simplicity, I simply used any, but of course you can define a regular normal type here. So this way you can keep a value which is available across multiple calls of this app function. So that's again a quite tricky part, that you need this div section. Actually this is documented nicely, so more or less nicely, but it required some effort from me to figure out how to use it the most efficient way. So it's a must, and then this is a must too, just to be able to position. And here is actually the item on this left hand side. Just coming back again, this is what I am talking about. When I click, this is positioned here. Okay, so that was the useRef hook. I didn't use here effect hooks. Another tricky thing, that if you want, you can define local functions within this function. So this is a JavaScript. The fancy thing here is a variable pointing to a function set drawer open. Therefore you can use this set drawer open directly, or sorry, this is the on drawer cause. On drawer cause is used here. I don't really understand when this on clause is called, but anyhow. Right, so this was the function and the header part, and then comes the return of this function, which is a big div. And here is the drawer with the open, is drawer open, from a React hook, state management, then a menu, a list of menu items. These are just regular list items with list item graphics, list item text, and then for the list item you have the option to define the on-click methods. Here the only thing I do is just simply close the drawer, that's all. And then comes the application part, I created here a big div. I think it's not necessary to have it here, but makes no harm. Under this div I have the top up bar, which is fixed. Here you can define the navigation icon. The navigation icon, this is the icon, the menu icon here on the left hand side. And then the other are the action items. These are on the right hand side, where I define this more vertical, the 3 dots vertical. So I set this div under, this is an array. You see, this is an array, that's why it is quite nifty. And then a material icon with the on click, logging, and the set menu open. Set menu open using the React state management hook. And then comes the menu surface. This is practically a placeholder where this is where it manages if it's open or not. And then comes the corner bottom left, on close, set menu open. And the anchor element here is where we use this menu anchored element for the proper positioning. The list is the menu option, the list of menus under the menu surface. This is quite straightforward, very similar to the other. So actually this the structure, the architecture of this MDC React and MDC Web is quite clean, but it requires a lot of experimenting. And then we have here a top up bar fixed adjust. I just copy pasted it from the sample. I think it is required. And then for the sake of experimenting, I have here a number of div section with lorem text to test the scrolling. Actually, that was it of the main application. I kept index CSS, index TSX exactly. I haven't changed anything, and that was all. So this is an initial package where you can start using MDC React starter with TypeScript, as well as create React app.